We've gotten some pretty great switches in over the course of the past year, so it's time for another switch shootout. This time we're focusing on linear switches. To give all of the switches on hand a fair shot at performing their best, we'll be using one of my favorite keyboards in my collection, the Mode Envoy. Stay tuned for a tactile switch version of this video coming soon, TM. Huge shout out and thank you to mechanicalkeyboards.com for sending over both the Purple Slush and the Cherry MX2A Red linears for us to take a look at today. Links for those and everything else seen today will be down in the video's description, along with chapters to jump right to the stuff that matters the most to you. We'll also have the description for our testing environment and conditions down below in case you want to see specifically how we're making these typing tests today. The first switch we've got on hand is the Purple Slush by mechanicalkeyboards.com and manufactured by JWK. They carry a turquoise full nylon housing and a purple palm linear stem with a 65-gram spring. Design-wise, there's nothing overly exciting to write about here, but that's not really a bad thing if you're looking for more of a classic MX linear sound and feel from your switches. I'm also happy to report very reasonably controlled stem wobble without things feeling overly tight. The main point of contention here is maybe the price, with these switches costing anywhere from 45 to 50 cents per, depending on how many you buy at a time. It's not that this is an offensive price, it's just not quite as competitive as I'd have liked to have seen this be. Though the overall quality of the switch is fantastic, and once lubed with 205 grade 0 like we've done here, I'd take these over most full nylon linears any day. They may not be doing anything particularly exciting compared to the other switches here, but we let off with it because it's just a solid all-around nice option with a crisp, deep, classic acoustic profile that'd be right at home on any board looking for a balanced classical linear that isn't cherry, giving these a sure thing award. They'll just sort of work wherever. Next is the Cherry MX2A Reds, also sent over by mechanicalkeyboards.com. These originally came to us in a pack of 70 as part of a first edition bundle with the Outlaw 65 we took a look at a little bit ago, and tout some improvements over the previous designs like a new spring crown in the stem, polished internals from the Hyperglides, a new and improved barrel spring design, and improved spring lubing. The one thing I don't get now that they're listed as a standalone product is why the plate mount version is 10 cents more expensive per switch. That shouldn't be a thing, and frankly I highly advise against buying that version unless you just have a board that only accepts 3-pin MX switches in the first place. The housing is Cherry's traditional RGB formula of a milky nylon bottom housing, polycarb top housing, and a palm stem, with a spring weighing in at about 55 grams like before. Yet somehow these just feel way better. Actually, at stock, almost every single one of the springs on these MX2A Reds was damn near perfect. I would go so far as to say, if you touch up anything else on the switches, you can leave the springs alone. They're already good to go. I found that after lubing these with the supplied lube from the Outlaw 65, they still carried a fair amount of scratch in the acoustic profile, admittedly a desirable thing depending on who you're talking to, but in terms of feel, they felt really good and should only get better over time, as Cherry switches are notorious for doing. I didn't even really feel the need to film these, making these the nicest Cherry switch experience I've had yet. If you're looking to finally give Cherry switches a try, the time is now, and this is the switch to try. For that, I'd give these a most improved and most worth checking out again award. Following this up was the AJazz Red Spirit Linear, a budget factory lube switch with an elongated 45-gram spring, palm stem, and full polycarb housing that I stumbled across completely by accident. Available in packs of 45 for $11, these come out to roughly 25 cents per switch rounding up. For a factory lube linear, that ain't bad at all, though it's not without its faults. This Featherlight switch feels more snappy and lively as a result of the longer spring creating more preloaded tension on the stem. The factory lube is somewhat inconsistent across the switches I dared to open at all. Turns out this full polycarb housing is sort of fragile and has some tolerance issues. One switch I tried to open immediately had a top housing clip fail, bringing that switch's life to an early and unfortunate end, and all bottom housings somehow get wedged pretty hard in my AIO3 switch opener. I've used this thing on all manner of switches, by the way, from Cherry, Gateron, Kale, JWK, Texi, Gazoo, Decaro, and many others. None of them have had bottom housings get stuck in this opener before. The worst part about getting a bottom housing unstuck from a switch opener like that is depending on where you're gripping and where and when it breaks loose. You may get it suddenly breaking loose to the point that it rolls in your fingers. You may accidentally end up jabbing yourself with one of those metal pins, possibly getting it up underneath your fingernail. Ask me how I know. It's because of this potentially dangerous environment that I try and avoid opening these switches at all. But your mileage may vary. Maybe your switch opener works better with these than mine does. Now, thankfully, the switches all largely sound and feel great at stock, so there's that. But on very rare occasions, I will get a switch that when hit off axis with just the right amount of force, the stems get momentarily stuck in the sliders of the bottom housing, then breaks loose and it's fine again. If you find these on sale anywhere, like AliExpress or Temu, they're maybe worth picking up. Otherwise, I'd look to something like the Gateron G Pro line of switches for a better overall experience. Unless AJazz revises these molds to fix their issues, then we'd have some interesting competition on our hands. Last is a hyper-budget switch, Keebmonkey Iceberg linears featuring a nylon bottom housing, polycarb wing latch top housing, and a 55-gram two-stage long spring. I haven't taken a look at these in some time, and I actually sort of forgot I even had them in the first place. At the time I got them, they were 25 cents per switch, but can now be found through the Keebmonkey website for 20 cents per switch. These are an Athleon-made switch that I first purchased back in August of 2021 from Drop, and they claimed to be factory lubed even then. But it turns out the lube they were using was more of an idea than actual lube being on the stems. They were functionally dry, so we did of course re-lube these ourselves with 205 grade 0. The housings are reasonably well made, with a fully enclosed RGB diffuser section at the front of the switch. Sorry, no through-hole LED compatibility here. The palm stem features a slide rail that has raised perimeters like the AJazz stem. The spring was a rare bird for its time, a two-stage long spring. This design creates a lot more upfront force being required to actuate the switch, leading the weight to feel more consistent across the stroke and, when looking at something like a force chart, would create more of a slow increase in overall force required, hence slow spring. One would think that with these materials all sort of being familiar to the rest of the range we looked at here, it would sound similar as well. You would be very wrong. This is a rather deep, broad-sounding switch, and that's considering I was very light-handed with lube on these. As switches go, these may not be my personal favorite in terms of overall acoustics, but for the price and overall quality, if you're looking for a darker-sounding linear, these are absolutely worth considering, especially if they manage to fix the factory lube in more recent batches. I'd give these a Budget Banger award for bringing good overall build quality and feel for a price that makes them downright accessible. So that's going to more or less wrap it for this one. If you made it to the end, thank you so much for watching. You're the real goats. Videos like this are going to become more of a focal point here on the channel because especially with the Switch market having expanded and exploded like it has even just over the course of the past year, it's becoming more important than ever to have these comparisons of all of these different Switch designs, material compositions, and combinations so we understand more effectively what it is we're looking at when we're sort of shopping around for all of these bespoke components. And with that in mind, let us know down in the comments below, what did you think about the switches we had on hand today, and what are some other linear switches that you'd like to see us take a look at and compare to one another here on the channel? We're going to be doing a lot more content like this, and I'm really excited to explore that with stuff that you want to see the most. And thank you so much for tuning in. Remember to hit that like button on the way out. Make sure you're subscribed and notified so you don't miss any of our content when it goes live here. Make sure you're following us on all of our socials. Links for those are down below. And make sure you catch us on Twitch Sundays and Wednesdays at 9 a.m. and 7 p.m. Pacific, respectively. We do keyboard and gaming stuff there. It's always a good time. And if you're looking for some more content to peruse, maybe check out these videos we got up right here. Again, thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you all next time.